The Galactic Confederation's Grand Chamber was a vast space of gleaming metals and strange glowing stones. Creatures from 100 worlds moved about, their bodies in all shapes and sizes. Some floated in the air, others crawled on many legs, a few were just clouds of light with eyes. Ambassador Nari Kim took a deep breath as she waited to enter. She had trained for 2 years for this moment. Earth had only learned about alien life 5 years ago, when a Confederation scout ship had finally decided to make contact. Now, after years of talks and tests, humanity was being allowed to join the great community of spacefaring races. The enormous doors slid open. Nari stepped forward with careful, measured steps. Her simple blue uniform stood out among the elaborate costumes and natural body coverings of the aliens. At just over 5 feet tall, she felt like a child among giants. Most of the beings in the room were at least 7 feet tall. Some were over 15. The room fell silent. 1,000 eyes turned to watch her. "The representative of Earth may approach," said a voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Nari walked the long path to the center of the room. She kept her eyes forward, her face calm, though her heart beat fast in her chest. The path seemed endless, but she did not hurry. Earth's first impression on the galactic stage would be of dignity and control, she had decided. At the center of the room stood Supreme Counselor Vox, leader of the Confederation. Vox was twice Nari's height, with 6 powerful arms and skin that changed colors as he spoke. His head was long and narrow, with 4 eyes set in a row. "We have observed your world for 500 years, Vox said, his voice deep and slow. "Your development has been adequate. Your wars have been many but small. Your technology grows, but not quickly. Your biology is unremarkable." Nari kept her face neutral despite the insults hidden in his words. This was not the time to show anger. "We welcome Earth to our community of stars," Vox continued, raising all 6 arms in a formal gesture. "Though your species is classified merely as Category 3, physically unimpressive and technologically rudimentary, we recognize your quaint resourcefulness." A low sound moved through the crowd. Nari realized it was laughter. They were laughing at humans, at Earth. "Humanity is grateful for acceptance into your confederation," she replied, her voice steady and clear. She had practiced this line 100 times. From a dark corner of the room, someone was watching with special interest. Unlike the other council members who looked at Nari with amusement or boredom, this figure seemed truly curious. He was small compared to the others, with gray skin that hung loose on his thin frame. His eyes were large and black, ancient with knowledge. This was Elder Tool of the Vordak, one of the oldest species in the Confederation. The Vordak were rare now, their numbers few, but they were respected for their wisdom and long memory. Tool had lived for over 300 years and had seen many new species join the great community of stars. "Earth will be given standard new member rights," Vox announced. "You may travel on approved paths. You may trade basic goods. You may request help in emergencies." "Thank you, Supreme Counselor," Nari said with a small bow. "You will be assigned to Sector 17, continued Vox, waving one hand at a star map that appeared in the air. "Limited resources, but suitable for your developmental stage." Nari knew what this meant. Sector 17 was far from the center of Confederation activity. It had few valuable planets or trade routes. It was where they put species they didn't think were important. "We accept," Nari replied, though her eyes held a hint of steel that went unnoticed by all but Elder Tool. She had been warned this might happen. Earth's leaders had decided to accept any position, no matter how poor. Getting a foot in the door was what mattered. "Does the Earth representative wish to address the Council?" Vox asked, following the formal process. Nari stepped forward. "The people of Earth are honored to join this ancient and noble community. We have much to learn, but we also have much to offer. Humans are adaptable. We survive in harsh conditions. We find unusual solutions to problems. We work together when needed. We look forward to proving our worth to the Confederation." Most of the council members barely listened. Some talked among themselves. Others checked data on their devices. They had heard such speeches from new species many times before. But Elder Tool listened closely. He noticed how the human stood straight despite being surrounded by creatures who could crush her with one hand. He saw the intelligence in her eyes. He remembered other species who had been underestimated. After the ceremony, Neri was shown to a small room where she would stay until transport to Sector 17 was arranged. The room was clearly designed for larger beings, with furniture she could barely climb onto. "They do not make things easy for newcomers," said a voice from the doorway. Neri turned to see Elder Toll standing there, his thin body leaning on a staff made of some strange metal. "Elder Tool," she said with a respectful bow, "I am honored by your visit. You handled yourself well in there," the old Vordak said. "Most new species tremble or boast. You did neither." "I'm sure I'm not the first diplomat to keep her feelings hidden," Neri replied with a small smile. "No, but most species show their true nature regardless of training." Toll moved into the room, his steps slow but sure. "The Council sees humans as weak, soft-bodied, no claws, no natural weapons. Your technology is simple compared to ours. We know our place in the universe has changed," Neri said carefully. "We are ready to learn." "Are you?" Tool asked, his ancient eyes studying her. "Or are you ready to show them they are wrong?" Neri said nothing, but something flashed in her eyes. Toll nodded as if she had answered. "I thought so. Be careful, Ambassador. The Confederation is not used to surprises." Later, as Neri departed to send her report to Earth, Elder Toll whispered to his aide who had been waiting outside. "They see only weakness where they should see warning signs. History repeats itself." His aide looked confused. "What do you mean, Elder?" "I have lived long enough to recognize patterns," Toll said quietly. "The quiet ones, the overlooked ones, they are the ones who change everything. The Council thinks humans are harmless. They are wrong. The first attack came without warning. The colony on New Terra was only 2 years old, home to nearly 20,000 humans. They had built farms, schools, and small factories. They followed all the rules the Confederation had set for new colonies. They stayed within their borders. They didn't take too many resources. They didn't bother anyone. None of that mattered to the Crawl. Colony Director Geopark was reviewing crop reports when the alarm sounded. He ran to the control center where screens showed large ships entering the planet's atmosphere. "Who are they?" he asked the young woman at the communications station. "Unknown, sir," she answered, her voice shaking. "They aren't responding to our messages." Jiho's screen lit up with an incoming transmission. The face that appeared wasn't human. It had gray-blue skin, sharp teeth, and 4 yellow eyes. "Attention human settlement," the creature said in rough, translated speech. "This is Commander Drez of the Crawl Empire. This world is now under Crawl control. You have 1 hour to begin evacuation. Any resistance will be met with force." "There must be a mistake," Jiho said quickly. "New Terra was assigned to Earth by the Galactic Confederation. We have proper documentation. The Confederation's assignments mean nothing to the Crawl." Commander Drez interrupted. "This world has resources we need. Your species is unworthy of the stars. 1 hour." The transmission ended. Jiho immediately sent emergency messages to Earth and the Confederation. Then he ordered the colony's few security officers to prepare for the worst while organizing an evacuation of women and children to the underground shelters. 1 hour later, exactly as promised, the Crawl ships opened fire. The colony's small defense shields failed within minutes. Buildings exploded. Farms burned. People ran screaming as Crawl soldiers landed and began rounding up humans they found. In the damaged control center, Jiho made his final transmission. Static filled the screen as weapons fire shook the building. His face was covered in blood from a cut on his forehead. "This is Colony Director Geopark of New Terra. We are under attack by Krull forces. Civilian casualties in the thousands. Please respond. The Krull Empire is. The transmission cut off as the ceiling collapsed. On Earth, the message caused immediate action. Ships were prepared. Soldiers were called up. But Earth was 3 weeks away at top speed. By the time help could arrive, it might be too late. Ambassador Nari Kim took the message directly to the Confederation Council. We need immediate assistance. The Krull are attacking a peaceful human colony. We will discuss this matter, Supreme Counselor Vox said calmly. The Krull have not violated any major Confederation rules. What? Nari could not believe what she was hearing. They are killing our people. The Krull Empire is not technically part of the Confederation, another counselor explained. They are an associated power. They have their own territory and rules. New Terra is not in their territory, Nari argued. Borders in Sector 17 are flexible, Vox said with a wave of his hand. We will send a diplomatic message expressing our concern. For 3 months, the Council discussed the issue while refusing to take action. Meanwhile, Earth sent what ships it could, but they were too few and too small to fight the Krull directly. What no one expected was what happened on New Terra itself. Captain Minho Lee had been visiting the colony to inspect their small security force when the attack came. When the main colony fell, he led survivors into the mountains. There were only a few hundred of them. They had limited weapons and supplies. By all normal thinking, they should have surrendered. They did not. Minho organized them into small teams. They studied the Krull, learned their patterns, and began to strike back. They sabotaged Krull mining equipment. They ambushed patrols. They stole weapons and learned to use them. The Krull responded by sending more troops to crush these annoying humans. It should have been easy. The Krull were bigger, stronger, and had better weapons. But the humans kept changing tactics. When the Krull guarded their equipment, the humans poisoned their food supply. When the Krull swept the mountains, the humans hid in tunnels they had dug. When the Krull brought in air support, the humans shot from positions too close to the Krull's own troops for them to bomb. After the third failed assault on the human resistance, Captain Minho gathered his tired fighters in a hidden cave. Their numbers had actually grown as more survivors and escaped prisoners joined them. They don't adapt, he told his bloodied soldiers as they treated their wounds and checked their stolen weapons. They expected us to surrender after the first bombardment. They keep using the same tactics even when those tactics fail. They're strong but predictable. Why don't they just bomb everything? Asked a young woman who had been a farmer before the attack. Because they want the resources, Minho explained. They can't destroy what they came to take. That's our advantage. 3 months after the initial attack, Ambassador Neri was finally granted another hearing before the full council. This time, she did not follow diplomatic protocol. She slammed her fist on the podium. While you debated, New Terra fell. The Krull Empire has declared our species unworthy of the stars, while you dismissed our warnings as exaggerations. Unfortunate, but interfering in Krull expansion is not our policy, Counselor Vox responded coolly. Then what is the purpose of this confederation? Nari demanded. If you will not protect your members, what good are you? Murmurs spread through the chamber. No new species had ever spoken to the council this way. You forget your place, Ambassador, Vox said, his skin turning a dark purple with anger. No, you forget yours, Nari replied. Earth joined in good faith. We followed your rules. And when we needed help, you did nothing. The human colony was in a disputed area. It was where you told us to go, Nari shouted. You put us in Sector 17 because you thought we didn't matter. The Krull attacked because they thought we were weak. Everyone keeps underestimating humanity. That is a mistake that will not continue. As the council erupted in angry discussion, Elder Tool of the Vordak approached Nari quietly. Your people on New Terra, he said softly. We have received reports. They still fight. Nari nodded. Of course they do. The Crawl have never failed to crush resistance before, Toll continued. Your people fight differently than predicted. They adapt in ways the Crawl cannot understand. You don't understand what you've unleashed, Neri replied quietly. Humanity was peaceful by choice, not necessity. Elder Toll studied her face. I am beginning to understand. The Council sees only a small, angry diplomat. I see the representative of a species that may change everything. We didn't want this, Neri said. We wanted peace, trade, friendship. Now we will have justice. At what cost? Tool asked. Neri looked at the arguing council members, none of whom had offered real help to Earth. That, she said, is entirely up to them. The attack on New Terra changed everything on Earth. Before, different countries had their own space programs and competed with each other. Now, they all work together. Before, people argued about spending money on space. Now, everyone agreed it was needed for survival. 6 months after the Crawl attack, Earth looked very different. Car factories now built parts for warships. Phone companies made communication systems for the military. Universities focused on space defense instead of regular research. In Seoul, the United Earth Defense Council met in an underground room. Leaders from every major nation sat around a large table. On screens around the room, they could see the progress of their work. New ships being built, weapons being tested, soldiers training. General Hyun-woo Kang stood at the front of the room. He was a tall man with gray hair and a serious face. For 30 years, he had served in his country's military. Now he led Earth's combined forces. The Crawl think they know what we'll do, Hyun-woo told the group. They expect us to fight like they do, to use the same tactics they use, to follow the rules of war as they understand them. He smiled slightly. We won't do any of that. They have better ships, said the representative from Brazil. More advanced weapons, stronger shields. How do we fight that? By not fighting the way they expect, Hyun-woo replied. The Crawl expected standard warfare. We'll give them something they've never seen. What exactly does that mean? Asked the European Union leader. Hyun-woo pointed to a screen showing a strange-looking ship. It was smaller than standard military vessels. Parts of it looked like they had been taken from mining equipment. This is the Dawn, he said. The first of our new fleet. It doesn't look impressive. It's not supposed to. The Crawl will see it and think it's weak. They'll be wrong. 2 weeks later, the Dawn and 5 similar ships approached Proxima Station. This was a small Crawl base they had set up near Earth's solar system. It was their forward position for planning attacks on human territory. Commander Ja Park sat in the captain's chair of the Dawn. She had been a cargo ship pilot before the war. She knew how to move big ships carefully through tight spaces, a skill that would be very useful today. Crawl ships are moving to intercept, reported her sensor officer. 3 war cruisers, much bigger than us. Jia nodded calmly. Just as we expected. Open a channel. The face of a Crawl commander appeared on her screen. He looked surprised to see a human. This is Commander Ja Park of Earth, she said. Your forces have attacked a peaceful human colony. You will leave human space immediately or face the consequences. The Crawl commander laughed, showing his sharp teeth. Your primitive ships don't concern us. Surrender now and your deaths will be quick. Jia cut the communication. They always want to talk, she said to her crew. Let's show them what humans do instead. The Dawn and its sister ships moved in a pattern the Crawl had never seen before. Instead of forming a line or a defensive circle, they split up and attacked from multiple angles. The Crawl ships tried to target them, but the human vessels were surprisingly fast and maneuverable. Activate the cutters, Ja ordered. What happened next shocked the Crawl. From each human ship, beams of intense energy shot out. These weren't regular weapons. They were modified mining tools designed to cut through asteroid rock. The humans had adjusted them to target the specific frequency of Crawl shields. The beams passed through the Crawl shields like they weren't even there and cut deep into the ship's hulls. Impossible, shouted the Crawl commander as his ship's alarms blared. "Adjust shield frequencies." But it was too late. The human ships darted in and out, cutting critical systems with surgical precision. Within 20 minutes, all 3 Crawl cruisers were disabled, floating helplessly in space. Jia opened the channel again. "This is your only warning. Leave human space or be destroyed. We are not the easy target you thought we were." After securing the Crawl crews as prisoners, Jia sent a message back to Earth. "First engagement successful. Their technology is advanced but predictable. We are not." News of the victory spread quickly. On Earth, people celebrated. In the Confederation, there was shock. A recording of the battle was played during an emergency council session. Species that had dismissed humans as weak now watched in stunned silence as the small human ships disabled Crawl cruisers with apparent ease. "Impossible," muttered a Crawl diplomat present at the session. They were primitives. Their ships were barely space-worthy 6 months ago. Elder Tull of the Vordak shook his ancient head. "No, they were patient. They studied your technology while you thought they were harmless. They learned your weaknesses while you ignored them." Supreme Counselor Vox turned his 4 eyes to Ambassador Neri, who sat quietly watching the recording. "Is this an official act of war against the Crawl Empire by Earth?" "No," Neri replied calmly. "This is self-defense. The Crawl attacked us without provocation. We are simply responding. With technology you shouldn't have." The Crawl diplomat snarled. "With technology we developed ourselves," Neri corrected. "Mining tools adjusted for a new purpose. Nothing in Confederation rules says we can't use our own technology creatively." Back on Earth, in a heavily guarded laboratory, scientist Taewoo Choi stood before the military leadership. On the screen behind him was a complex diagram of a device that looked like a large satellite. Taewoo was young for his position, only 32, but he had been a leading expert in planetary science before the war. Now his knowledge was being used for something very different. "Before the Crawl attack," he explained, "we were developing technology to help make other planets habitable for humans. We called it terraforming, changing a planet's environment to be more like Earth's." He clicked a button, and the image changed to show the same device with different settings. "I've repurposed our terraforming technology. Rather than creating atmospheres, it can now remove them." General Hyunwoo looked concerned. "You're talking about a weapon that could make an entire planet uninhabitable." "Yes," Taewoo said quietly. "It would remove the air that people breathe. It would work on any planet with an atmosphere similar to what we need, including Crawl worlds." The room fell silent as everyone understood what this meant. Such a weapon could kill billions. "We won't use it," Hyunwoo finally said. "Not unless there is absolutely no other choice." "But," he paused, thinking carefully, "the Crawl don't need to know that. Sometimes the threat of a weapon is more useful than the weapon itself." Taewoo nodded, relieved. He hadn't built this device to use it. He had built it to protect his world. At the edge of the solar system, more human ships were being completed each day. They didn't look impressive. They didn't look threatening. And that was exactly the point. The giant had awakened, but it didn't roar and beat its chest like the Crawl would have done. Instead, it moved quietly, thought carefully, and prepared thoroughly. And the galaxy was about to learn just how dangerous that kind of giant could be. The Crawl Empire had never known fear before. For 300 years, they had conquered and taken what they wanted. Their warriors were bred for battle. Their ships were built for war. Other species ran when Crawl ships appeared. It was the natural order of things. Until the humans came. On the Crawl warship Thunderfist, Commander Drez paced the bridge. He was the same commander who had led the attack on New Terra 1 year ago. That easy victory had earned him a promotion. Now he commanded 20 ships instead of 5. But things had changed. In the last 3 months, 15 Crawl bases had been attacked. 37 ships had been destroyed or captured. And no one could explain how the humans were doing it. "Status report," Drez ordered. All systems normal, Commander, his first officer replied. No unusual activity. Our patrol route is clear. Dres grunted. That's what they all said before the attacks happened. Suddenly, the ship's alarms blared. On the main screen, 6 ships appeared from nowhere. They weren't there a second ago. There had been no warning from the sensors. No sign of approach. Battle stations. Dres shouted. Target those ships and fire. But before the crawl gunners could lock on targets, all communication screens on the ship lit up with the same image. A human male in a simple dark uniform. Admiral Junhobli's face was calm, almost blank, as he spoke the words that had become famous across crawl space. Remember Nuterra. The message was always the same, just those 3 words. Then the attack would begin. The human ships moved in patterns that made no sense. They seemed to flicker in and out of normal space. Crawl targeting systems couldn't lock onto them. They fired weapons that bypassed shields as if they weren't there. How do they do this? Screamed Rez as his ship shook from another hit. Where did they get such technology? The truth was simple but hard for the crawl to accept. Humans hadn't gotten the technology from anywhere. They had created it themselves, and quickly. The Ghost Fleet, as the crawl called it, used a mix of technologies no one had combined before. The ships could briefly slip into another dimension, becoming untargetable for short periods. This wasn't some advanced alien technology. It was based on human theoretical physics that other species had dismissed as unworkable. The weapons were modified tools from other industries. The ships themselves were smaller and less impressive than standard warships, but far more flexible and unpredictable. 10 minutes after they appeared, the human ships vanished again, leaving 3 crawl vessels critically damaged. The Thunderfist had lost its main engines and weapons. Commander Dres stood in his broken bridge, surrounded by injured crew, and felt something new. Doubt. Back on the crawl homeworld, similar reports arrived every day. The Emperor, a massive crawl with ceremonial scars covering his blue-gray skin, listened with growing anger. How are they finding our ships? He demanded of his generals. How do they appear from nowhere? We don't know, Emperor, admitted the head of the crawl military. They use techniques we've never seen before. Their ships don't follow normal rules. They're just humans. The Emperor roared. Soft creatures with no natural armor. Their technology was primitive a year ago. Yes, Emperor, but they learn quickly. They adapt. And the general hesitated. Speak, ordered the Emperor. Our warriors are beginning to fear them, the general said quietly. The Ghost Fleet appears without warning. The human admiral says those words. Remember Nuterra, and our troops expect to die. Some crews have even abandoned ships when human vessels appear. The Emperor's 4 eyes widened in shock. Crawl warriors never retreated. They never showed fear. It was beaten out of them in training. This is unacceptable, he growled. The humans must be destroyed completely. We've tried, Emperor. We sent our largest fleet to their colony on Alpha Centauri. The humans were waiting. They had hidden their atmospheric destabilizer in the planet's rings. Half our ships lost air and power before they could even fire a shot. The Emperor was silent for a long moment. Then he did something no Crawl Emperor had done in living memory. He gave an order to retreat. Pull back all ships to defensive positions. Send peace envoys to Earth. Offer whatever it takes to end this. At the same time, in the Grand Chamber of the Galactic Confederation, an emergency session was underway. Representatives from dozens of species argued loudly about the human crawl war. The humans must be stopped, shouted the representative of a species allied with the crawl. Their tactics violate the natural order of warfare. The crawl attacked them first, pointed out another alien. The humans are defending themselves, with weapons and techniques that should not exist, the first alien insisted. Their Ghost Fleet uses dimensional shifting that even we considered theoretical. Their atmospheric weapons could destroy entire civilizations. Supreme Counselor Vox raised all 6 hands for silence. We are concerned about the escalation of this conflict. The humans were classified as Category 3, yet they fight with Category 1 capability. This was unexpected. From his place near the back of the chamber, Elder Tull of the Vordak finally spoke. Though his voice was soft, the room fell silent to hear him. The Vordak rarely spoke in council sessions. I warned this council when the humans first joined us, Tull said. I saw signs that many missed. The humans share traits with the berserker species of ancient times, not physically imposing, but once provoked. What are these berserkers you speak of? Counselor Vox asked. I find no record of them in our databases. You wouldn't, Tull replied. It was long before current records. My great-grandfather told me the stories, passed down through generations. They were a small, seemingly harmless species from a heavy-gravity world. Like humans, they appeared weak. Like humans, they were creative. Like humans, they preferred peace, until threatened. What happened to these berserkers? Asked Vox, his skin changing to a worried yellow color. Elder Tull's ancient eyes seemed to look into the distant past. Those who threatened them no longer exist to tell their tale. The council chamber was completely silent now. Are you suggesting the humans will destroy the crawl completely? Vox asked. I am suggesting, Tull said carefully, that the crawl finally found the one species they should never have attacked. We should be thankful the humans are showing more restraint than the berserkers did. In Earth's orbital headquarters, President Subin Yoon sat across from the crawl peace envoy. The crawl diplomat was clearly uncomfortable being so close to humans, but he delivered his message as ordered. The Crawl Empire offers cessation of hostilities and reparations for the regrettable incident at New Terra, the diplomat stated formally. We will recognize all human territories and withdraw our forces from disputed regions. President Yoon, a woman with short gray hair and steady eyes, listened without expression. When the crawl finished speaking, she stood up. 1 year ago, your forces attacked our colony. You killed thousands of our people. You called us unworthy of the stars. You thought we would be easy to crush. Her voice was calm but ice-cold. You chose extinction when you targeted our children. Peace requires justice first. The crawl diplomat blinked his 4 eyes rapidly. What does that mean? What do you want? It means, Admiral Junho said from his position by the wall, that we're just getting started. The crawl homeworld was beautiful from space. Its blue-green oceans and white clouds looked similar to Earth. Millions of crawl lived on its surface. They had never worried about attack. No enemy had ever reached their home in the 300 years of the Crawl Empire. Until now. 200 human ships appeared in orbit around the planet. They didn't arrive slowly or announce their coming. 1 minute the space was empty. The next minute the ghost fleet was there, surrounding the world completely. On the bridge of his flagship, Admiral Junho Lee looked at the blue-green planet on his screen. His face showed no joy or excitement. Just calm focus. Open communication with the Crawl Imperial Palace, he ordered. In the palace, the Crawl Emperor was in the middle of a meeting with his remaining generals when all screens in the room suddenly showed the face of Admiral Lee. The human looked small and soft compared to the Crawl, but none of them felt superior anymore. This is Admiral Junho Lee of Earth, the human said simply. Your forces attacked our colony at New Terra. You killed our people. You called us unworthy of the stars. The Emperor stood up, his 4 eyes blinking rapidly. We have sent peace envoys. We have offered. Silence, Junho said, and somehow the quiet word stopped the Emperor mid-sentence. I am not here to negotiate. I am here to end this. On the screens in the palace, the view changed to show a satellite-like device moving into position above the planet. This is our atmospheric conversion technology, Junho continued, originally designed to make dead worlds habitable. Now it can do the opposite. Your planet's atmosphere would be gone in 6 hours. Nothing would survive. The palace room was completely silent. The Emperor and his generals stared at the screen in shock. Surrender your leadership, face justice for the attack on New Terra, or we demonstrate our terraform reversal technology on your atmosphere. You wouldn't, the Emperor said, but his voice shook. You would kill billions. That would make you monsters like us. Chunho's face showed no emotion. We are not like you. We don't want to use this weapon. But make no mistake, we will if we must. You chose this path when you decided human lives were worth nothing. The Emperor looked at his generals. Some looked angry. Some looked afraid. But all of them knew the truth. They had no defense against this weapon. Their mighty ships could do nothing against something that would take the very air they breathed. How do we know you will spare our people if we surrender? The Emperor asked. Because humans keep their word, Juno replied. Unlike the Crawl. The Emperor of the most feared empire in the galaxy lowered his head. I surrender. Within an hour, the formal surrender was signed and broadcast across all Crawl territories. The Emperor and his high command were taken into custody to face trial for the attack on New Terra. The war was over. But the story was just beginning. 6 months later, the Galactic Confederation convened its most important meeting in centuries. The Grand Chamber was more crowded than it had ever been. Representatives from every member species were present. Many stood because there weren't enough seats. At the center of the room stood Supreme Counselor Vox, Ambassador Nari Kim, and Elder Tool of the Vordak. This special session is called to address the reclassification of humanity, Vox announced, his 6 arms raised for silence. When Earth joined us 2 years ago, humans were classified as Category 3, a physically limited, technologically developing species. Recent events have shown this classification to be, he paused, inaccurate. Murmurs spread through the crowd. The Council proposes reclassifying humanity as Category 1, a potential existential threat to galactic stability. More murmurs, louder this time. Earth has demonstrated technology that should not have been possible for them to develop so quickly, Vox continued. Their ghost fleet uses dimensional shifting beyond what was thought practical. Their atmospheric conversion technology could destroy entire civilizations. Their adaptability in warfare is unprecedented. Neri stood quietly, her face calm. She had fought for respect for humanity. And now she had it. But it wasn't the kind of respect she had hoped for. From his place beside her, Elder Toll spoke. I would like to remind the Council that humans did not start this conflict. They did not use their technology to destroy the Crawl homeworld, though they could have. They showed restraint. Yes, Vox agreed, but the potential remains. A species that can develop such weapons so quickly must be watched carefully. And what does Earth say to this? Asked another counselor. All eyes turned to Nari. She stepped forward, her small figure somehow commanding the attention of the entire chamber. Earth accepts the Category 1 classification, she said, surprising many who expected her to argue. We understand your fear. But we want to show you something else about humanity besides our ability to fight when threatened. She gestured, and a star map appeared in the air above them. Certain systems were highlighted in green. This is the Protective Alliance, Nari explained, a new organization formed by Earth. We have invited the smaller species of the galaxy to join us, those who have been exploited by larger powers like the Crawl. Together, we will ensure that what happened to New Terra never happens to anyone else. The Council was stunned. They had expected Earth to use its new power to dominate. Instead, humans were protecting the weak. Why would you do this? Vox asked. You could demand anything from the Confederation now. Because this is who we really are, Neri replied. We never wanted war, but we will always finish it. Remember this. We value peace through strength, justice through mercy. Those who respect these principles will find no better friend than humanity. As she spoke these words, many in the chamber realized they had misunderstood humans from the beginning. They weren't just clever fighters. They had a moral core that guided their actions. Elder Toll watched with quiet satisfaction. He had seen something in humans that others had missed. Not just their potential for rage when provoked, but their capacity for forgiveness when respected. Over the next few years, the galaxy changed. The Krull Empire was reformed, with its military power limited. Smaller species flourished under the Protective Alliance's guidance. Earth shared some of its technology, but only the kind that helped people, never the kind that harmed them. And in diplomatic academies across the galaxy, a new lesson was taught to students learning about interspecies relations. When dealing with humans, never provoke their rage, for there is no force in the galaxy that can stand against them. But if you treat them with respect, there is no better ally you could have. The humans, once dismissed as weak and primitive, had become the moral center of the galaxy. Not because they were perfect, but because they understood something important. True strength isn't about power. It's about how you use it. The end.